Here to discuss it is Congressman Dan Bishop. Congressman, good to see you. Thank you for being here. Now, of course, Canada doesn't have a Second Amendment, but I'm hearing sounds from colleagues of yours on the Democratic side that seem to be saying that you can just kind of pass over that little thing called the Second Amendment.
David, I think you're exactly right. Joe Biden said in one of the walkbacks of your earlier segment, he talked about 9mm bullets being unusually dangerous. That's the most common form of handgun in America. He implied that ought to be banned before his press flack walked it back. But his instincts are exactly the same as Justin Trudeau. Ban everything, grab guns. That's exactly what we're going to see in the Judiciary Committee tomorrow. We're being called back in the middle of a recess before the facts have come out on these recent attacks, before we've had the opportunity to learn the lessons from those. And they've got, partial bans and a bunch of other things that are being thrown at the wall. Nancy Pelosi said as soon as we get a couple of these things through, she's got another plan to have an assault weapons ban ready to come up. So the instincts are precisely the same. The only difference in the United States and Canada is that Second Amendment to the Constitution, right, and the fundamental constitutional right to keep and bear arms. They would do all of that, all of what Justin Trudeau's doing. Justin Trudeau, the great admirer of Fidel Castro, if they could get away with it.
Now, Congressman, I have a feeling, I have an instinct that some of these gaffes that the president made, even though they're walked back, is stuff that he has been discussing internally in the White House, that they've been talking about, and that 9mm comment seemed to be one of those things. I'm just wondering, first of all, if you agree that that's a possibility. Secondly, Democrats do have this history of bait and switch. They will take a tragedy and use the political energy of that tragedy to try to push some Republicans into their corner on this issue. And then finally, when it all sorts out, some of the Republicans shake their head and realize what has happened. What do you think is going to happen? Will there be Republicans that join in on a bait and switch attempt by Democrats?
Well, David, first of all, to your first point, when someone tells you who they are, believe them. They say with every opportunity, and you look at Beto O'Rourke. I mean, he's back to confiscating weapons, just like Justin Trudeau wants to do. That's what they want to do. That's their objective. In terms of what actually will have it right, look, there are ideas that ought to be considered carefully and astutely, and it ought to be worked over in a bipartisan fashion, given time and the opportunity to learn. The desire to rush something through in an emotional moment is not the way serious legislation should be undertaken.
So the Supreme Court has made decisions over the years on various issues involving guns. The most notable one recently is the Heller decision that it made. It was Heller versus D.C. And this was, in this decision, the Supreme Court decided that while it is not absolute, that individuals have the right to possess firearms to protect themselves. In the past, there had been unclear whether the Second Amendment was talking about militia or individuals, but they made it clear that individuals have that right. Now, the problem with Heller was it was a decision for D.C., which is not a state. What happens if a state finally makes a decision to try to ban firearms that the Supreme Court overturns? Will that put an end to all this legislation that Democrats keep trying to put in?
Well, I think it is a big obstacle for them. Heller, of course, was succeeded by, and I'm drawing a blank on the name, but the case that arose out of the state of Illinois. So the Supreme Court has spoken to the enforceability of the Second Amendment from state law as well. The Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals just ruled that a ban of AR-15s to 18 to 20-year-olds is unconstitutional. There's a lot of law they have to contend with in order to be able to strip gun rights at this stage in time. And ultimately, I think the Supreme Court is their big obstacle.
Yeah. And finally, we just have about 20 seconds, but there's the ultimate irony, and maybe it's not an irony, but a lesson, that those cities that have the most restrictive gun control laws, New York, L.A., D.C., Chicago, have some of the worst gun crimes in America. Do you think that's just coincidence?
It's not just coincidence, David. Time and time again, the story has been told: when you strip gun rights from people, the people who are innocent, law-abiding people, are the folks who suffer. You have to be very careful about those ideas.
Congressman Dan Bishop, good to see you, Congressman. Thank you for being here. Appreciate it.